We have heard many times, India is one of the largest democracies, one of the largest. But that is the biggest understatement possible. India is largest by miles. The second largest democracy in the world is USA, which is 1/4 of India. We have more voters than all 50 countries of Europe put together, or all 54 countries of Africa put together. Or North and South Africa, I didn't even know that there are 43 countries in these two continents. We have more than that, and the entire Commonwealth. In fact, each of these continents is just 60% of India. We have 90 countries rolled into one. So that is the complexity, that is the size and magnitude of our election. But complexities of 90 countries also rolled into one. Anything which is happening in the world, militancy, terrorism, tribalism, whatever you have it in plenty. And we have to deal with it. How do we do it? Because we have been equipped with a brilliant constitution, which had a separate chapter on the election. We have been given a constitutional mandate to conduct free, fair election, and the words are superintend, direct and control all elections in the country. The authority and autonomy of election is mind-boggling. We are perhaps the most powerful commission in the world. How we mobilize the staff. Constitution provides that we can ask the president or the governor to give us any person to work on the election, and they can say no. And 12 million people conducted the last election. All government servants, whom you'd normally call inefficient, lazy and corrupt, but once they come under the election commission, they deliver a zero-error election every time. And that is the beauty of the system. Planning and coordination are the key words for us to be successful. We plan, because for us, error is not an option. We follow Murphy's law. If something can go wrong, it will, and at the wrong time. Therefore, we always have a plan B, and a plan C, and a plan D, because anything can go wrong, but failure is not our option. And we are always learning. With all, we could have become very arrogant, we are the most successful, the best election commission in the world, but we are constantly learning. And learning from the bottom, from the grassroots, from the lowest of officers. And when we like the idea, we make it a national scheme. Inclusion is the key word here. The largest democracy, 900 million voters out of 1.32 billion population. Shashi Tharoor talked about plural society. That is the beauty. We have all the religions of the world in here. We have geographical variations, and we deal with all that. We have a polling station which is 1,200 kilometers from India's mainland and only 200 kilometers from Indonesia. There also, we have to give as good an election as in Connaught Place of Delhi. Without no question, in the hills, in the mountains, in the rivers, in the island, wherever we have to do that. And in the plural society, we have to make sure that nobody is left out. And we are constantly innovating, which is the theme of my topic today. I'm focusing on 6 major innovations. First of all, EVMs and VVPATs. Originally, we were using ballot boxes, individual ballot box for every candidate. His name was printed. Then they found that in some boxes there were already ballot papers beforehand to rig the election. So we replaced it with a common ballot paper in a common ballot box. Later on, we introduced EVMs in 1982 for the first time in Kerala. And it was like any innovation, this was questioned and challenged, went up to Supreme Court. Supreme Court says you cannot use EVMs, not because it suspected our technology, but for a legal reason. They said that your law talks of a ballot paper. It doesn't mention a machine. So amend the law and start using. So we got the law amended and we started using machines from 1998. And recently we have added a VVPAT, voter verifiable paper audit trail. You see that in the middle. When you press the button on the right gadget, which is a balloting unit, you have chosen your candidate, but you are not sure where it is going. It was only a matter of your faith and belief. And people started questioning that you voted for X and it was going to Y. To take care of that, we created a VVPAT, and you can see on the screen the person that you have chosen. And it will stay there for 7 seconds. Then a slip will get, the printed slip will get cut and get into the seal box to be counted to compare. On the left is the central processing unit, which records all the events. Now, in this photograph, you will see on the right are those individual ballot boxes, which were replaced on the left side, a common ballot box with a common ballot paper. Now, the earliest disruption was when we adopted republic and democracy in 1950. And we gave universal adult franchise. Every man or woman of 21 was given voting rights. The Western world was aghast that these guys with 84% illiteracy, divided by castes and communities, just after the partition and where a couple of millions were killed, 565 princely states, how will this country run its democracy? But we belied all the prophecies of doom, and the very first election was an excellent election, and thanks to somebody from Calcutta, Mr. Sukumar Sen, an ICS officer. We must appreciate his contribution because he laid the foundation, and 80% of the election that we conduct today was what he built. Now, when we started the VVPAT, the idea was that the trust deficit should be bridged. We can count in the last general election, 21,000 VVPAT machines, the chits from them were counted, and each of them tallied. There was later on a few, 4, 5, 7 discrepancies were mentioned, but that showed that the machines were fine because VVPAT confirmed it. Now, these are some of the pictures of the election process and activity, how we carry our polling parties and bring them back. Like on the right, you see elephants. This is not just for effect. But in deep forest, this is the only transport possible. We have to take boats, we have to take mules, and we have to take helicopters, whatever it takes. And when every transport fails, walk. So some of our polling parties walk for 3 days or 4 days to reach the polling station. Now, if you see the left bottom, this is when the polling parties are coming back and showing their records and depositing their equipment and everything, the machines and the paper. And the officers are trying to find out if there were any complaints during the poll day. Because on the basis of that information, tomorrow morning we will order repoll, which is our last weapon available, which is why after the last day of poll, we still keep 4 days for counting, because we may have to order some repoll. Sometimes we order repoll of the repoll till we are sure that the election was fair. Now, and one innovation or disruption was photo identity card. Something which you take for granted. Something very, very simple for you. When Mr. Session asked for money for this, the government declined. And it was in government's power not to give money. Mr. Session said, all right, don't give me the money, I will not conduct the elections because that is in my power. Now, the significance was, the government was of Mr. Narasimha Rao. Mr. Narasimha Rao was not a member of parliament. He was the prime minister. And under the constitution, he had to become an MP within 6 months. And if election is not held, he will not become an MP, which means he'll have to resign from the PM and the government goes. So immediately the government fell on its knees and gave Mr. Session what he wanted. And that's how you have this photo card, which was later on, a photo was added. You have voter ID card to check impersonation. Now, every innovation has met with resistance. That is the point which comes across throughout my presentation. Now, look at the way the people enthusiastically carry their voter card. Then photo electoral rolls and BLOs. Impersonation was the order of the day. Now when you go to the polling station, on the electoral roll, your photo is there. So there is no question of impersonation. And we also created an institution of a BLO, booth level officer. Who is the person in your village, in your ward? Maybe a school teacher or a patwari, so that you go to that fellow's house and find out whether my name is there in the roll or not. If not, she will give you a form, your photo, or whatever it is. If there is a mistake in the electoral roll, she will give you another form. So we have taken this service to the doorstep. Have you ever seen a service coming to your doorstep? Have you ever seen somebody coming into your door and saying, oh, do you want a passport? Here is a passport. Or do you want a driving license? Here is a driving license. Only Election Commission goes to your doorstep, gives you enrolls you and gives you your photo card. Now, live webcasting, another innovation, small innovation. Some young lady, Swati Sharma, she was a collector in Arunachal Pradesh on Myanmar border, and her husband Ankur Garg, a collector in the adjoining district. Now, those are places where it takes 3 to 4 days for a polling party to walk with their gear and conduct the poll and come back, and taking another 3 days. If the booth is captured, how do we know? We'll get to know after the results are announced, and once the results are announced, nothing can be done because the power shifts to the High Court through election petition. So she came to Delhi and she says, sir, in 13 villages I have started live webcasting. I have installed a laptop and with a camera, and sitting in Delhi, this number, you can see what is happening. Sure enough, I saw in one polling station a police constable in uniform entered, which is illegal. Police cannot enter the polling station. Immediately we rang up the concerned officers to find out what was happening. It was a foolish, a stupid entry. There was no evil intention, but the fact that we could see sitting in Delhi. Now, we adopted it for the whole country. Later on, once Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, CM of Andhra Pradesh, came to meet us at the height of Telangana agitation. He says because of the heat and of the agitation, it is becoming difficult for his workers to enter the polling station. And he knew about this facility. He says, can you modify, instead of a long shot of the polling station, can you give us a close-up so that sitting in our offices, we can see if anybody is impersonating? No problem, we did that. So how important a tool this became with a small innovation which started somewhere on the China or the Myanmar border. These are some of the pictures of those polling stations which we captured through the live webcast. Now, another innovation we did was SVEEP, Systematic Voters Education for Electoral Participation. I have communication background, my PhD is in communication. So when I joined the Election Commission as Election Commissioner in 2006, and I was looking at the voter turnout figures of 20%, 25%, 30% in some areas, I said, this is not acceptable. We need to do something. Let us educate the voters. I met with resistance. No. Educating voters is not our job. Our job is just to conduct election. I said, no. Because if the voter turnout is low, if it's only 10% vote you win, 90% have not voted for you, so your legitimacy will be questioned. Therefore, we need to do something. Or a very dangerous proposal used to come, let us make voting compulsory. Now, compulsion and democracy don't go together. We said nothing doing. We will vote, make it compulsory. Through persuasion and education, we'll do it. We were told, Australia and Singapore have compulsory voting. Why don't you learn? I talked to my counterpart in Australia, and he said that their experience is very bad. To collect a fine of $20, they have to spend $2,000 on 3 years of litigation. And Singapore? Now, what can we learn from Singapore? Australia is size of Haryana, Singapore is of size of Karol Bagh. No, we have to learn from Singapore. So that was not acceptable. We set up this voter education division in 2010. Every election has given us historic turnout, the record turnout in history, and it has been a great success story. When I was talking to my Australian counterpart, I said, after all that compulsion, then your turnout must be 100%. He said, no, it is 90%. And when I was talking to him, we had already achieved 93% in Tirupura by persuasion, by love. So that is the beauty of this program. This is being studied. Somebody is even doing a PhD on this. These are the range of activities. Now these are some of the advertisements on TV, radio, press, everything with literacy club. Whole range of activities were started. This is also interesting thing. This is all mobilization of the people to educate them. Now, National Voters Day, again an innovation. I was addressing a meeting of civil society in Odisha, Bhubaneswar, where somebody from the audience raised his hand and said, 18 years is a special date, we should celebrate. It's a good idea, let us think of a celebration. Within a week, we came up with National Voters Day idea. And what is the idea? That you start identifying those who will become 18 beforehand, and enroll them and give them voter card. So 8,000 public functions and polling booth level were to be organized, and they were giving their voter card. After that, and of course all these people who came to collect their voter card, they took a pledge that they will surely vote and they will vote honestly without inducement. It has been a great success story. By now 7 countries of the world have adopted this National Voters Day because they were present when our Rashtrapati was giving a voter card to new voters on the first National Voters Day. This is the pledge, but I'm not going to read it. The turnout has been increasing. The last election had the highest ever turnout. The gender gap has been reducing. You will see red is women, blue is men. That used to be the gender gap and has now narrowed down. And in fact, in 16, 17 states, despite their adverse gender, more women are coming to vote than men. This is the last thing in India International Institute of Democracy and Election Management. When I sent this proposal, law ministry opposed it. Everybody opposed it. Oh, why? But we said when we want zero error election from our 18 million government servants, we have to give good training. We set up this institute, and I'm happy to say in 6 years, 85 countries have trained from us. That is why Shashi Tharoor was saying that we are global guru in this. Hillary Clinton described India's election as gold standard. So it doesn't come easily. This is some of the courses. Now lessons. What are a simple idea can change the game. Persistence in the face of hurdles. Planning effectively, reducing the scope for errors. Leave notes for the future, for strategy, because it should not go with you when you retire. And of course, Murphy's law has to be remembered.